All right, welcome back everyone. In the last video, we have seen how would you create multiple virtual machines, and we have seen how they can communicate to each other if they are in the same virtual network, even if they exist into different subnets. In today's video, we are going to show you how would you create another virtual network in the same region. And then we're going to create also another virtual network in a different region for disaster recovery. And then how can we enable communication between these multiple virtual network. So as I mentioned, by default, if you have I have this virtual network that we have created the last time. I've actually deleted the virtual machines just to save cost. But we have this address space. So we have seen how would you create the the virtual network. So I will just tell GitHub Copilot that I need to create another virtual network which is gonna act as the hub network, and I will talk about this in a minute. But let me just tell GitHub Copilot here in the the planning phase. So let me just go here. Sorry, this one, and then plan with GitHub Copilot. I'll say I have a VNet, which this one. The name is VNet prod spoke. I need to create another virtual network in the same region. So let's tell the region is West Europe. Is West Europe. Create a VNet using the same naming convention. So VNet maybe prod. It's gonna be hub in a different resource group using Bicep. As I mentioned before, there are many different ways to create or manage resources in Azure. You're gonna use the Azure portal, the CLI or PowerShell, or even using the Bicep, which is the I would say the infrastructure as code. So if you would like to create more than one resource, you would use Bicep, which is the modified version or the refined version from the Azure Resource Manager template, which was based on JavaScript. So this time we're gonna see how can I do that. I'm just planning with Copilot that this is the resource I have, and then we will go ahead and start implementing that using Bicep. So as you can see, it's just asking me about the setup. So it's telling me here, I see that there is a virtual network, this one 10.0.0/16. So the hub will be 1 because they cannot overlap, remember. So I will just agree with this one. And then he is telling me here, do you want me to create more than one subnet or just keep the default subnet? So I will just select here the default subnet only. And then the resource group, maybe I'm just going to use the same naming convention that I have used in the first one. So let me just go back to the resource group. So I will just here copy the RG VNet production. Actually, even we can use the same resource group. So because this is going to be on the same in the same region, so I'm just going to say, hey, this is keep it in this resource group. So Copilot is also asking me if I want to keep the VNet ID and subnets right for other deployments. If I'm gonna create this for a larger deployment, it will leave that. So that's fine. Let's try, and then let's see what's gonna happen. Okay, so now we agreed on a plan. Hey, I'm gonna do this. Let me just zoom in. So here it says the plan is create a Bicep template for VNet prod hub. This is going to be the network space or ID. and it's going to be in the West Europe. This is going to be deployed to this resource group. So this is your existing one, and then keep like the VNet or the deployment details. Here it's going to create a min bicep file, and then it's going to define those plan. So it sounds good to me. So what I will do is we will switch to the agent mode. So I will say start the implementation. Now, as you can see, the agent switched from the plan mode to agent, and I've mentioned this many times in different episodes, but GitHub Copilot can have 3 modes, which also differentiate between the all-purpose large language model and Copilot or GitHub Copilot. Is basically these modes. So normally, if you would like to ask Copilot a question, then you're gonna ask here, just brainstorming or asking about the code and so on. If you're planning, then you can just give it more context and then plan, like what we are doing. And then if you would like to allow GitHub Copilot to do certain action, then you can just go ahead and then switch to agent mode. That's a new feature, and also GitHub Copilot can work behind the scene and show nothing, or it also can show you what's happening in the terminal here. So what we can see now, GitHub Copilot created a new Bicep file here. So this Bicep file is basically listing the version. So now it's just created in Azure DevOps using my folder, and then started to say, hey, this is the environment name. Start to build the whole script here. So the parameter is prod, so hard coded the variables, and then start to define my my virtual network, my subnet. So as you can see, it's only deploying this, and then this is the tag, and so on. So it's perfect. Looks good. So now it told me here the template is ready to deploy. So I would say go ahead and deploy. So why would I use infrastructure as code again if I want to create more than one virtual network, more than one VM, more than one resources across different subscriptions? I just have my template ready to go, and then I just can start to push that. So you can see here GitHub Copilot is using the Azure CLI to push this infrastructure as code or Bicep template to my Azure subscription. Okay, GitHub created successfully the Azure Virtual Network, so in that resource group. So if I go back here and try to refresh, I should be able to see the Hub Virtual Network. Why I'm creating a hub and spoke? So now we have 2 virtual network in the same region. That's the best practice normally, that you would have a hub network for building your firewall, building your VPNs, and so on back to the on-premises. And then you have the spoke which hosts the application. So it depends how large is your environment. You might have more than one virtual network because you might run out of IP address. You might have different network rules and so on. So people normally would create more than one virtual network in the same region. If you want to use a disaster recovery region, then you can use a different region and then build your disaster recovery virtual network, which in this case is called global peering, if you would like to enable connectivity between them. But this is the documentation. It's talking about what is the different or these terminologies I've used in my deployment. And you can see here it's talking about this is the Azure Virtual Network. And then you could have one hub network which hosts the Bastion service. Again, I will talk about this later. The Azure Firewall, your VPN gateway, and then you have more than one spoke virtual network. And between them, there is a peering connection. Why we are building the peering connection? To enable these resources to be able to talk to each other. So whatever, how many virtual network need to link it to be able to talk to each other, you can do that. Of course, if you build between this and this one, it's not gonna. It doesn't mean that they can't talk to each other from here. So you have also to enable peering between these 2 virtual networks as well. Okay, so that's how it works, and I will show you actually how, how this is actually going to be built. But again, the more you increase the network, the more complex it's going to be. But I just wanted to talk about the virtual network peering today to enable connectivity between two different virtual networks. Subnets can communicate to each other, and so on. Okay. So I will leave this documentation in the video description to be able to read about the hub and spoke topology and why it's there. But I wouldn't recommend to rely on a single virtual network, although it's very simple to manage. But multiple virtual networks are always the safest way. Okay, so now I have a virtual network, which is the hub. This is the newly created one. If I take a look here, this is 10.0.1.0.0/16. As we told GitHub Copilot, I need one subnet. So if I take a look here, there is only one subnet and 251. And then here it just wrote like SNet prod hub default. So this is just a naming convention. Don't be scared from it. And then we have our regular subnet, the spoke subnet, which we have multiple subnets here. So I'm going to build one virtual machine here and then another virtual machine into the other subnet or the other virtual network. And then let's see if they can communicate to each other. Okay. So I'll pause the recording and then come back again. Just for context, what I will do here, I'm just creating the hub VM, and then I will place it in the hub network and then spoke VM, just to be able to distinguish between all of them. So I'm just gonna create multiple Windows Server Azure Edition. Again, don't worry about the naming on all of this. We will tackle this in details, or like how would you use the virtual machine. But for now, I'm just giving you the context how I'm going to do it. I'm allowing RDP ports, here the 3389, to be able to access that virtual machine. I'm also going to use a standard SSD for the the interface. And then again, because I placed it on the same region, so I have to choose my hub network. And then I have only one subnet. Then I will choose the one that is created by GitHub Copilot, and it will create a public IP called hub VM IP. That's fine. And then network security group, the port is going to be allowed in this one. And then I will enable to delete the VM and its network interface when I want to delete it. So that's just later for the demo. Management here, I will just take out the auto shutdown. I'll take out, that's fine. Hot patch, disable the monitoring, and then no extensions, review and create, and then hit create. I'll repeat the same steps for the other VM, and then let's test the connectivity between both of them. Okay, I've created the other version VM as well in the spoke. So that's also in West Europe region. So I'm just going to click on create. And then I need to allow ICMP to be able to ping the VM. So let me just go to the first one. So now the second still creating, so it will take some time. But here I just can go under network settings and then allow ICMP. So here RDP is enabled to any. That's not secured. Don't do it, guys. This is just for testing purposes. I'm gonna create another inbound role. Again, I'm gonna talk about this, but not today. This is gonna be for for a later video about network security group. But let me just take a look if there is ICMP in place here or not. Yeah. So ICMP allow, and then I will say here allow ICMP. I think then click on add. Any custom destination is fine. Then ICMP v4, because we're using IPv4. I'm gonna click add. Okay, so now ICMP is allowed. Let me just go back as well, replicate the same steps for the other virtual machine. I think I just forgot to hit create for the second one. So now the hub is configured. Let's configure the spoke as well, and then allow ICMP, and then again remote desktop is allowed in the creation process. So let me just allow also ICMP. So custom ICMP, and then allow, and then here allow ICMP. Click add. All right, so now I have this virtual machine 1. Let me just connect to the public IP. We have seen how to do that in the last video, so I'm not going to repeat that again. So while this is connecting, let me just show you or walk you through the lab. Here we are connecting from 52.157.87.1110. This is going to be the public IP. This is the first virtual network 10.1.0.4. And then here I'm in the VNet prod hub, right? So if I go back to my virtual network, to give you some handover here, we will see that we have the overview page, and then we click on topology. So I only have one VM, okay? Just because some people might think, oh, okay, you have two VMs in the same VNet. No, they are separated. You can see here VNet prod hub, and then these are my infrastructure. If I go back to the second virtual machine, which is the spoke one, again, different IP address, 10.0.1.4, different public IP, and then different virtual network. And then here you can see VNet prod, and if I go under topology, I'll see a single VM. So like two different VMs on two different network. Let's see if they will be able to communicate, right? So let me just take a look here and then see what's happening. Yeah, that's the setup. Just give me 1 second. I'll come back in. Okay, this VM loaded successfully. So let me just open PowerShell and then allow ICMP as well, or disable the firewall. Okay, so whatever. So remember that in the last video we have to do that through the Windows firewall as well. So we have to allow ICMP from the operating system. The way to do it is just to switch here to the ask mode. I need the command to allow ICMP from the Windows VM level, and then I should be able to Copilot should give me that answer. No, the niche command. I don't have to memorize anything. Okay, so yeah, niche firewall, allow ICMP, action, boom. So this is what I'm gonna do is allow ICMP, paste, hit enter. If I try to remote desktop now from here to the other VM, I won't be able to do so. So now I'm connecting from that network to the private IP address. So let me just go here. We are in 110. We want to connect to the second one, but again through the private IP address. So let me try that. Copy. Then try here, paste, connect. Okay, it's impossible. All right. So I have now to connect from my machine here to the second one through the public internet again. That's why we're allowing the RDP. And we have like a public IP. We're allowing everything to the internet, which is not a secured option. But we will see also how would you use Azure Bastion to connect from a secured network. Even if you don't have a site-to-site VPN or point-to-site or even express route, you still can build a secure jump box to connect to your virtual machines. But again, this is going to be the upcoming series. I know there's a lot to talk about in the VMs, so this is just the basics, okay? So don't worry, we'll come to the virtual machines. I just want to just allow the ping as well from here, and then let's see what's going to happen. Okay, I'm in the second VM. Let me just paste the command as well here. So, oops, it's not saved. Okay, we just go back here. Niche, boom. Allow ICMP. Then I should be good to go. Now, if I do, I have two VMs now. So if I do, actually it's ping from the first one. So if I try to ping this virtual machine, which is ipconfig/all, first let's check just the, you can see here my IP address 10.0.1.0.4, okay? but notice here it's a bit confusing. I'm sorry about this, but this is just the DHCP 10.1.0.4 here, 10.0.1.4. Okay, so there are two different IP address. If I try to ping this one, then it's not going to work, and we are not able also to connect to that virtual machine. Why? Again, because the connectivity or the communication between these two virtual networks are not allowed by default. Now what we will do is, from any virtual network, whether the hub or spoke, we just can go under peering here. So this is where you're gonna build a tunnel or a connection between the first virtual network and the second one. So now here it's asking you about, like, you know, what's the name of the or what's the peering link name. So I'm gonna call it give it a very creative name, peering 1. And then now if, like, you know, this is on a different subscription, you can also connect different subscriptions. Okay, and then here I will just select. So now we are from the virtual network prod hub. I want to connect to the spoke network, so I'm gonna select my spoke network. And then here, notice this remote virtual network peering settings, like allow virtual network prod to access VNet prod hub, yes. And then I want to allow the other one as well, so allow the VNet prod spoke to receive forwarded traffic from VNet hub, yes. And then if there's gateway or a VPN, I can do that as well, but I don't have a VPN gateway, so I'm not gonna enable these guys. So here, allow gateway or route server in VNet, and then vice versa. So here, this is just the same settings. Again, I have to, like, maybe also do. Let's actually give it more meaningful, because I have to give it multiple name. So peering 1 dash prod. Or yeah, and then peering 1 dash spoke, because here from prod, so let's just myself I'm confused, so let me just do spoke. This is from hub to spoke, and this is from spoke to hub. Okay, because it's gonna go ahead and create these multiple times, or create the peering into the both virtual networks. I don't need to repeat this step on both networks. It will just, you can go do it from any virtual network, and then it will just automatically create the peering into the other virtual network. So now, as you can see, in a few seconds it's created the first peering, and then the second one is gonna go ahead and create it now. So let's just pause the recording. Actually, I don't need to do that. So as you can see, in the peering hub here, it's created the, the remote one is going to be the virtual network prod spoke. And then if I go to the second one, let me just, where's the spoke? If I go to the spoke one and then see the peering here, and then I will see here it's connected and it's fully synchronized. I can also delete that peering if I want to. If I would like to modify the settings that we have selected, we can do that as well. But you can see the status of the peering is successful, which means now these virtual networks can communicate to each other over the private IP address. Let me try and see if I'm lying or not. As you can see, boom, immediately the ping is working. If I go to the other one, I try to ping the other machine. So if I do ipconfig /all, take a look here, this is my 10.0, so I have to do 10.1.0.4. It's pretty confusing. Ping 10.1.0.4. Then I should be able to receive a response. Now let me try to RDP, or try to remote desktop this virtual machine. So I'm gonna copy the IP address, the private one, then try to connect from here. Let's do mstsc from start run, and then here I'm gonna paste the secondary virtual machine. Now I'm not connecting over the public IP address, I'm connecting over the private one. So now I'm using my username and password, and then I should be able to connect to my virtual machine. So the minute you see that there is a successful connection, or successful, even if you wrote the username and password incorrect, that's mean the network is working just fine. So now the peering has been successfully created. These two virtual machines are in two different virtual networks, and they are able to communicate to each other. You can create more than one peering. There are limits and stuff like that. Again, I will just leave everything regarding the peering connection. There is here like how would you create virtual network peering. This is going to be the steps. All of what we have done is actually here. This is the settings that you will see. And then pretty much we covered it, but I would highly recommend that you also try that. So you can see here, this is how would you replicate, or how would you use the commands to ping the networks, and so on. Okay. You can create more than one peering into the same virtual network. That's fine. And I think you have to go back to the limits, or the virtual network limits, to really know okay, how many peering you can create per virtual network. But we can ask Copilot how many peering connection I can create between networks. So I should be able to see to view an answer. So here it's going to tell you the maximum peering is 500 peering to other VNet. Okay, so now I have 500 from for the hub. I have 500 to the spoke. So that's a very big number that you can create if you have or if you're deciding to build a complex network. There's also another very important topic here. Is called the enterprise scale landing zone, Azure. So this is in the cloud adoption framework. So if I go here, I will also leave this into the document, into the comment section as well in the YouTube video. But if I go under the implementation option, and then I go, let's just see the deployment options here. I just want to see the deployment options. Just give me 1 second. They are a little bit changed the documentation, but this is what you're going to expect from a large environment. Okay. So the reference architecture here is showing you that customers will use multi-subscription. And then you have management group that we have discussed in the previous episode. And then you can see here, they create a connectivity subscription, which is the hub network. And then they place the virtual network. They place the Azure Firewall, VPNs, and so on. And then they build the connectivity with the on-premises, for example. And then you have the spoke subscription, which is they place the identity there, and then there's a virtual network. There's global peering enabled, or even peering enabled between this subscription. Another peering into maybe the application subscription, and so on. There are many examples that you can take a look here, but the enterprise scale landing zone is so important. This is actually a template, like an infrastructure as code. You can deploy it using Bicep or Terraform or ARM template or whatever, but it's gonna show you here how would you build your infrastructure as an enterprise customer. If you're big or even medium-sized customer, and you need to build according to the best practice, your reference or your moment of truth or your Bible is gonna be the cloud adoption framework for Azure. And then you can see the landing zone architecture and how would you build a landing zone according to the best practice. I'm gonna tackle this in a future video, but again, this is just one note I wanted to highlight. And also you can test it out by clicking on deploy to Azure here. Once you sign in, you will see a wizard like this. So which region do you want to use? And then it will ask you a few questions like, do you want monitoring? Where is the monitoring subscription? Where is the management subscription? And so on. So even if you don't know anything about infrastructure as code, Microsoft built it for you. If you're building your network topology, is it going to be hub and spoke? Is it with firewall? Is it with third party? And so on. So it's actually, you can say yes or no. It's up to you. Identity. If you have a landing zone subscription. So this is according to the Microsoft best practice if you would like to enable monitoring, etc., etc. I will leave all of this documentation in the YouTube description. And that's just one hint. Don't be scared. This is too much, I know. but I just wanted to hint it for you in case if you would like to read more about the enterprise scale landing zone. With that, this is the end of our video for today. I hope it's useful, and then I will see you in the next video.